Hey guys, it's Scott from FXMissions.com. Just a note, I've finished the trilogy of Anthologies from the Forefront, and all 3 books are currently available on Amazon.
Welcome to From the Forefront, an FX Missions podcast with your host, Scott McClelland. Far and wide, and sometimes here at home, these bold and courageous souls that answer the call to missions have a steely mettle that insists pioneering be part of their daily routine. Let's gather today and learn from those on the forefront. Here's Scott.
Hi, Scott McClelland here with your FX Missions From the Forefront podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you know someone who's interested in missions, maybe that's you. If it is you or someone you know, we want to encourage you to get activated, get going. The things the Lord's been dropping into your heart, we want to help you take stock of those things and say yes. That's our hope here at From the Forefront. And we're excited today to be joined by a guy who did just that and who is doing just that. A friend I've recently met, actually, Kyle Rice. Kyle, howdy.
Well, hello, Scott.
Do you guys say howdy in Alaska?
Not usually. I think that's a Texas thing.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, don't start talking about the size of Alaska relative to Texas, please. I got enough of that when I was up there. Well, no, I'm just kidding. Sort of. No, thanks for being with us this morning. Kyle, of course, you and I met recently when I was in Alaska visiting the Loving family, who we are starting to work with at FX Missions a little bit. So we had the good fortune to meet you and some of the other guys there. You're a friend of Zach Loving, who has also been on the podcast. I think Zach and Sarah, we're going to get them on soon as well. But that's how we met. And I think you're in Wasilla. Am I right?
I live just outside Wasilla in Alaska.
Okay, cool. Well, let's dig into a little bit about who you are, and we're going to get into our mission story. Were you raised in Wasilla?
Actually, I was mostly raised in Anchorage, Alaska, and then I've lived in Oregon and Washington.
Okay, so Pacific Northwest and Alaska, that's kind of where you're from. That's your stomping grounds there.
Yes, sir. I did live in New Mexico just for a couple months one time.
Okay, wow.
My
Too
stepdad
hot.
was in the military. Yeah.
Way too hot relative to Alaska. Have to go home.
Yeah, the grass was brown. I wasn't used to that.
Well, Alaska is kind of a mystery to most of us in the lower 48. I got to say that. Of course, some of the mystery is revealed to me now because I've been there. But I thought it was awesome to be there, I guess, midsummer, when the days were 20 hours in length, daylight all day and half the night. But what was it like growing up in Alaska? I mean, there are a lot more people in Alaska during the summer than I think there are during the winter. Do I have that right?
Oh, yeah. Usually the population just about doubles or triples in the summertime. Everybody that spends time up here will tell you there's no better place than summertime in Alaska. So, yeah, growing up, I loved it. I love hunting. I love fishing. I love the outdoors. To me, there's no better place in the world than Alaska.
Man. And I got to say, summer in Alaska is hands down better than summer in Texas. We had temps. Recently, we had a week of like 105, 106, 107, like that. Yeah, that was miserable. I was thinking about you guys. I got to say it. I was thinking about, those guys up there, But I would guess a winter in Alaska is a different thing. Now, you're one of those people who stay year round, clearly. Give us just a sec about what a winter in Alaska is like.
It's cold. I've actually learned to really embrace the winters. It can be very cold here. We get about, I would say, a couple weeks to about a month of below zero temperatures in our area. And most of the time, it's above that. usually in the teens or 20s Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
But my family and I, we love to do winter sports. So we do a lot of cross-country skiing and ice skating. And last year we got into biathlon, which is where you run around with a little rifle and shoot stuff. So that's pretty fun.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds cool. Biathlon. Like triathlon, but 2 instead of 3.
Yeah, so it's combined with either running or skiing and then shooting. So you shoot these little round targets, and you may have seen it in the Olympics.
Have not seen it. I gotta check that out though, because I mean, that sounds like a Texas sport, running and shooting. I mean, it would really, we would dig that here, I'm sure, except for unless it was in the summer, of course. Yeah, but that's surprising to me. I want to get back to your family. You mentioned your family, but it's surprising to me to find out that you guys, they're in the Anchorage area of Alaska. Alaska's a big state, guys. More than 2 of Texas can fit inside. So it's really, really, really massive, and you can't get your mind wrapped around it. Not to mention the beauty, but just the size. The beauty is equally stupefying, I've got to say it. And if you haven't been to Alaska, make your plans. So, but the temperatures there in the winter, I'm sure it can get much more cold potentially than what you're saying. But that Anchorage seems to be like a little pocket of, temperance in the middle of something much more extreme. Teens and 20s and down to 0 and stuff like that. That doesn't seem to be too bad. Am I misunderstanding?
No, it's really not. It, like you just mentioned, Alaska is so huge that the weather can vary greatly just an hour away or just a few miles away. And so even sometimes, so Anchorage is about 50 miles south of where we're at. And sometimes the weather can be completely different.
Wow. So generally, though, that area is temperate. I'm sure it's some bay or something there on the Bay of Anchorage. Obviously you're very close to the water there. That's going to have some kind of a normalizing effect on temperatures. But I've got a friend who lives up in, they renamed it to the native name and I can't remember, but it's way up on top, starts with a B. Barrow. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, they renamed it, and I cannot pronounce the name, so I'm not going to try to.
Yeah, me too. But Barrow, it's commonly known as Barrow, and it's on the forehead of Alaska, right? Way, way up there inside the Arctic Circle. Their temperatures are going to be a little bit different than yours.
Oh, yeah, that's no man's land up there.
Yeah, and he does it year round. I guess it's always winter there pretty much, though. I think I looked when we were at your place, the temperatures were between the 50s and 70s, and up there it was in the 30s, and it was mid-August. So, it's winter all the time up there. Otherwise, Santa's elves couldn't do their work, right?
That's right.
So let's double back to your family really quick. Tell me, I met some of your family when I was there. And of course, we talked a little bit. I believe we talked a little bit. Maybe I didn't meet your family. Maybe I saw you guys at the church meeting or something. But
I think
tell
you
us about your
did.
family. Yeah.
I think you did briefly. We were at the park. Playing football.
And it was, yes, that's correct. So clearly you're married. You got some kids. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay, well, I have 4 children between the ages of 6 and 15. My oldest is Eliana, and next we have Aubrey, who's 13. Jude is 11, and Silas is 6. And my wife's name is Samantha.
Okay,
they are awesome,
dude.
They go everywhere with me, and I was always raised up here. I had very active parents, so they brought me everywhere growing up in Alaska. So I'd be in a little backpack on a bike or in a boat. And so we've raised our children like that too. So they go everywhere with us. They fish, hunt, and do sports.
Very nice, man. That's huge. And to have that kind of family dynamic is precious. I noticed some things about Alaska that are different than what I, familiar with. Clearly, the outdoors piece of the context, like you're talking about, is huge. And I guess there's a limited number of months where the outdoor sports piece is really easy and not very difficult to do. And it seemed like everybody was out there in the outdoors when we were there. It's a big deal. And then, of course, Alaska's like Colorado on steroids, right? I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, and got this air about it that is so unique. So I loved it there. And I'm going to be coming back to see you guys. Can you tell I'm talking myself into it with each statement?
But you guys are welcome anytime.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I think we're going to get back. And we're working on the date ranges right now. It was chance I was going to get back for the missions conference, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. This would be a good time to shift gears a little bit. You guys are part of a local church there that has a missions conference that kind of is in the space that we work in that kind of world. Tell us a little bit about your local church, and then we can start moving in to talk about that missions conference a little bit.
Okay, yeah. Right now we go to the Church on the Rock in the Palmer location. They have a few different locations. I believe the main ones are Wasilla, Palmer, and Willow. We attend the Palmer one because most of our friends go over there. Of course, the Loving family.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of people that we know from that location. Let's see. I'm trying to think how long we've been going there. We were attending a different church a couple years ago, so we've been going there again for a couple years. And we just love the people there. We have a lot of friends. We just love the fact that they pour into missions, and that's a heavy focus of the church, and that's where our hearts are. So that's why we connect well and continue to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. It seemed obvious to me that the missions focus was really present. Learned a little bit about your missions conference. Of course, there's, I don't know if you'd say famous, but there definitely is some visibility to some of the missionaries you guys support. And I'm sure there's some that varies widely. But some of did you meet the guys at Free Burma Rangers during a missions conference, or how did you meet those guys?
My wife met the Eubank family many, many years ago, probably more than 15 years ago. She was a nanny for a missionary couple in China and Tibet area. And when they had basically their vacation time would be usually in Thailand, or if they had some medical things that they wanted to take care of, they would all go to Thailand. So she was actually stuck in Thailand for a couple months and ended up staying with the Eubank family. And that's where she met Dave and Karen. And at their time, their kids were really small. So before we got married, she used to tell me about them and try to explain what they do. And I never really quite understood, but I was always interested. And so I knew about them for several years, and then she introduced me in person to Dave when they were up here. I think it was 2015 or 2016. She's like, you got to meet this guy. So we went and listened to him talk, and right away I just felt a connection with them. I love his mindset, and what they do is just absolutely incredible. So I went up, introduced myself, and they remembered my wife, Samantha. And I got to talking to Dave, and we just kind of hit it off. We were talking about hunting and just some of the stuff that they do. Just a real personable guy, and he invited me over. And so that kind of got the wheels turning for me.
Wow. Yeah. For you who may not be familiar with Free Burma Rangers, I don't know that they're seeking a lot of publicity, but they definitely are not invisible in today's missions context. I think it's been about, going on 10 years since I became aware there was a Free Burma Rangers, and the Eubank family The whole family is a part of that. I think fairly recently, they may have become more visible in the Western world. They released a movie that was shown as sort of an event broadcast or an event feature at a lot of the movie theaters here in the States back when they were open before COVID. So we went to see the Free Burma Rangers movie actually on my birthday, February 25th, as kind of a birthday present from my wife, which I was super happy about that. Yeah, so if you're not familiar, Free Burma Rangers, you can Google that or go to their site. And then also I would highly recommend checking out their movie. It's more or less a documentary. It's not a dramatization or anything. It's kind of in the steps of video team went with. So they're quite interesting folks. I got to say that, you can get in there and find that yourself. I think you would agree with that. Wouldn't you say so, Kyle?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll just point out to your listeners, they can go to either freeburmarangers.org or fbrmovie.com. And you can click on there. You can see how you can watch the full-length film. And then their website has a lot of different resources, videos, updates of all the field situations. And they keep that pretty well updated.
Yeah, they do great with media. Tons of video, a lot of reporting. And they've been really a real reporting arm for the situation on the ground in Burma for a lot of years. A lot of their content's been featured in sort of the international news outlets around the world, sort of an eyewitness perspective of what's going on and some of the happenings, things that have happened historically in Burma. These days that's known as Myanmar, but that's the place where they're working. And on the movie, you can get a lot of their background. As well, on the movie, they did a good bit of relief work in the Middle East. So Iraq, I guess it was, and then some additional work that wasn't featured in the movie that came later where they did some relief work to Syria. And I think that's where our story gets started here a little bit. Kyle, how did you find out there was going to be a trip to Syria?
Well, I didn't find that out until fall of 2019, probably, I believe, the first part of October.
Okay.
Try to wrap that up in a nutshell. That's a bigger story. So basically, after I met Dave, he invited me a couple times to come to Thailand to their annual meetings that they have there. They usually hold an annual meeting in the springtime, and that's where their main base is, in the Chiang Mai area of Thailand.
Yeah.
And of course, the bulk of their operations and missions are in Burma. Most people call it Myanmar and the rest of the world, like you said. So he invited me a couple times, and I mulled it over. I kept saying, yeah, I'll come. And then I saw him the following year, and he said, hey, you said you were going to come. And I was like, oh, you remember that? He's like, yeah, I remember that. I was like, okay, well, maybe perhaps this year I'll make this happen. So I think God was working on my heart for a while. So I just wasn't in the place to really go yet. But we had some things happen in our lives that really changed my heart. If I could break just for a second, I want to tell a story about when I first met Dave, actually.
Sure.
So when I first met Dave Eubank, we were talking, and I'm a corrections officer. That's my main job here locally. And so I've worked in the prisons now for 10 years. Anyway, when I met Dave, we just got to talking, and I had just watched one of his videos and heard him speak, and I'm like, wow, these guys are real missionaries. They're running in between bullets to save people, and they're doing the real thing, Anyway, he met me and he said, did you say you're a corrections officer? I said, yes, sir. And he said, wow, can I pray for you? And I was like, you want to pray for me? You're running in and out of bullets. I said, sure. So he prayed for me, and that prayer was that God would soften my heart and and change, basically, not give me a hardened heart, but change my heart and soften it. And I didn't even realize at that time that I had a hard heart from my career in corrections. So over the course of the next few months, God answered that prayer, and we had a lot of family situations, deaths in the family, and just you name it, a lot of different situations. But over the course of that time, God really changed my heart, and I came to a place where I really want to live for something greater than myself.
Yeah.
And follow his call. Missions has always been a part of my heart, but a couple years ago, I really decided that, okay, God, I'm available, whatever you want me to do. And so I made the trip over to Thailand to check out the Free Burma Rangers. I wanted to go over there myself first, just to, I'll have to admit, part of me was like, can they really be this great? From all the movies and videos I've watched, I'm like, wow, these people are amazing. Is this real? So, I went over there. I met the whole team, the whole kind of extended team from all over different places in the world. And I just fell in love with them. They're just a big family. And the way Free Burma Rangers works is most people are Christian, but they accept all walks of life to come help out, which is amazing. A lot of people end up following Jesus after working with them. But I was, like I said, I fell in love with them, fell in love with the people. And when I went to Thailand, Dave asked me if I was interested in coming to Syria. We were kind of in a group of people introducing ourselves, and he's like, "You need to come to Syria."
He was talking to you. Did he single you out?
Yes, because I did. I was sharing that story about how he prayed for me and just my background in corrections and how God's working in that career with prisoners, and just having, developing a hardened heart over the years, and then God changing, showing me how to love people where they're at. And and he looked at me and he said, you need to come to Syria with us. That's kind of what we do over there. Your job is kind of in line with some of the things we do. And I didn't really fully know what he meant at the time, but I was just like, yeah, that sounds great. But in my head, I was thinking, no, that's crazy.
Wow.
And I remember, I just said, Lord, I'm going to pray about that. I prayed about it at that time and did not feel like God was leading me there. So
that doesn't sound, for me, all that unusual. I mean, if you've seen any of the pictures of Syria in the last couple of years, it's not a super inviting place in terms of safety or comfort. Or, I'm putting it lightly, but wow. So you didn't feel immediately led to go to Syria?
No, I did pray about it at the time, and they had a mission trip coming up, and I did not feel like God was calling me there at the time. So I, put that thought on the back burner. And while I was there in Thailand, we did a short mission trip kind of on the Burma-Thai border. And I loved it. I loved what FBR does. I love how they deliver food, aid, encouragement. They have what's called the GLC program, which stands for Good Life Club. And they do that with churches and families and villages. So they put on some kids programs, and every time I've been out in the mission field, I absolutely love it. I feel like that's where God has called me. For me, I just love the practical side of, being able to hand somebody a bottle of water or give them some food or clothing. I just love that. And they do so much more than just that.
They do. Yeah.
So anyway, we did that trip. I was really impacted by some of the refugee camps I saw. Burma is a country that has just hundreds of thousands of people within different refugee camps in different areas. And you can definitely research more on their website there.
Yeah.
And then, so I came back home and met the Loving family in Alaska and some other FBR people. And then last fall, the situation with I don't know if you recall, but the situation drastically changed with the Kurdish people in Syria. And then our President Trump, decided to pull some troops back from the Turkey-Syria border.
Yeah.
And doing so allowed some of the ISIS and Turkish fighters to come in and kind of take advantage of that situation.
Kind of left a vacuum.
It did, absolutely. And that whole situation over there is so sad. The Kurdish people are amazing people and won my heart over immediately from day one.
Yeah.
But I saw this going on the news, and I saw Dave's videos and updates. And so it was tugging at my heart, and I prayed about it, and they were in need of help. And I said, "Hey, Dave, do you need my help over there? You still want me to come?" And he sent me back a message, and he said, "Yes, if God's leading you to." So I prayed about it for a while, prayed about it with my family, and we all felt that I was supposed to go.
Wow.
So, yeah, I ended up getting the time off work, and it was incredible, actually, how things lined up for me to get over there. It was shockingly smooth.
Wow.
And so I feel it was completely God all the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's take a pause right here for just a second, because I want to recap some of the things that you're saying, just so we can kind of summarize them in our thought. You've been in some kind of familiarity with the Eubank family and Free Burma Rangers through your wife, for, some time before she had met them. And then you got introduced, you guys had some interaction. You had seen those guys talk a little bit, from time to time, and you got a feeling like you wanted to get over to Thailand and check it out, but you kind of maybe hadn't acted on that. The Lord did some stuff in your heart, some of that tenderizing program that he puts us through, he does for us. So as a result of that, you became more sensitive to the situation there. I'm not sure that my sequence is right, but you ended up going to Thailand.
Yes.
When you're there in Thailand, you're meeting with some folks there, and you tell your story about the tenderization, and that's when you got sort of singled out. Hey, you're a corrections officer. You need to be in Syria with us. Dude.
Yeah, and I don't. Well, later on, I think I got an idea of, it's not just the fact that I was a corrections officer, but the fact that it was evident that God had changed my heart and gave me, I went from hating people to sincerely loving people and wanting to do all that I can to help people.
Dude.
And that was a huge change for me. Even my family can tell you, I've been a Christian since 2002. And I should back up. I grew up Catholic, but didn't quite understand everything until about 2002, when I fully gave my life to Christ and said I want to live for him. But I definitely got off track through the years. So, sure. And being in that career field in corrections, I saw some of the evil in society and just the horrible things that people do to each other. And being in that environment can really change you. It's hard to not become hardened.
Yeah.
So I think Dave Eubank is a man that definitely understands that, because he's been in many situations over the decades where he's seen some of the worst things that people can do to each other. But at the same time, he's such a loving, soft-hearted person and has seen the work that Jesus can do in the hearts of people. And that happened in my life. His prayer came true for me and changed me. And so I wanted to do that for others, or at least encourage others. And so through the course of, about 2016 to 2018, like you said, God was really taking me through some times and changing me.
Yeah.
And I just came to a place where I said, Lord, all I want is to be used by you. And I just don't care anymore. I don't want to live for myself. I don't want to chase the things that only I want. And I was definitely impacted on the trip to Thailand and meeting the biggest ethnic group that FBR helps is the Karen people in Burma. Mm-hmm. And so I got to see some of their story and meet some of them. And I got to say, those guys are real life heroes. Some of these people grow up in war zones, and they're some of the happiest people I've ever met. So I was able to learn a lot from them. They're always smiling. They never complain. Just great people.
Wow. Yeah. If you see some of the content, you'll know that that's got to be God's grace in itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Totally. Well, I want to recap a little bit, and we're going to have to record another session. I know you've got at least 2 stories you want to tell us. And here we are out of runway in terms of time, but I do want to get back on your schedule and record again. I feel like you've got 2 specific stories that are important to share, and it may be more, or it may be 1, or maybe 5, but we're going to get to that. Really, this is just the teaser. It seems like, because we're leading up, and you can feel it leading up. But I want to call something out as we're going to conclude for this episode. I think the Lord may be entrusting something to you, like He has also entrusted to Mr. Dave Eubank, who I don't know and haven't met, though I have a lot of admiration for him from a distance. He's seen a lot, like you say. Was a special operations soldier for a decade. There's a lot there we could talk about, but he's seen a lot. Let's just put it that way. Through that, God softened his heart, and he's allowed the Lord to keep him tender in the face of a lot of this brutality, war, abuse, all the things that humans do to each other. That, I think, is a gift to him. It sounds like he's got an anointing from God to help in that specific area. And I think the Lord may be doing that also for you, Kyle. I think you may be in the process of being transformed. Clearly, some of that's already done, and it's working inside of you. But to be in a hardened environment and to also be soft, that makes you a secret weapon, really, for the Lord. Does that all make sense? I know I went through that kind of quick, but it seems that's true of him. And I'm feeling like that also may be something to do with your calling.
You're right there. I think it's only, it's definitely only by God's grace.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, we don't pass every test with 100 either, Kyle. So let's don't impose that standard on ourselves. Right? We're in the process with God, for sure.
How long do I have right now?
You've got 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. Wow, time goes by fast here. Yeah, it's just I am absolutely in awe of just the change that God's done in our lives and my family's lives, and all this will lead up to the the Syria discussion. There's so much to tell. So
totally.
But what I would really love for listeners to get is just the wonder of God. Jesus can do a work in anybody's heart. If he can work in my heart, he can work in anybody's heart. And yeah.
Yeah.
How do you explain God's love? It's incredible. And so obviously that love has changed me, changed my mindset. And if nothing else, I want to show people God's love. And that's whether I'm here in Alaska or Syria or Burma, anywhere in the world.
Amen to that, bro. Well, I need to get back on your schedule soon so that I can get at least one, or maybe we'll get 2 sessions at that point, because I feel like we're on the cusp of something important. We certainly want to get it. And it'll also give us some time to pray into exactly what the Lord wants you to share more, as we have been doing. There's way too much there in terms of stories. You got a lot of quantity on the stories, and there's no way to cover them all, but there are some things I think the Lord wants to emphasize and highlight. Those are the things we want to make sure we're getting out. Thank you so much for being here, Kyle. And I'm looking forward to the ongoing saga here, because this is not a story I've heard. So I'm like super anticipating, but I don't want to get it first. I want to get it when everyone else does. So, man, thank you for being with us. And let's sync up for a future schedule so we can get a couple of sessions more about Syria, Free Burma Rangers, Kyle Rice. And the fact that you came back alive is a foregone conclusion. But it might not have been a given,
It's a miracle, and hopefully we can get more into that in the other session.
We totally can. Well, many blessings to you, bro. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by Kyle Rice, and we're going to get to his story on Syria. Don't doubt it. But what we've just talked about also is very important. I think that process the Lord takes us through to get us where we're headed. You said something about not living for yourself. And boy, that's the crux of Christ-likeness, who showed us, no one has shown us a better example than the Lord himself. And he lived not for himself, but for the Father and for others. And at the end of this series, we'll get some contact information from Kyle in case you want to follow up with him. Thank you very much, Kyle, for being here. And it's been a blessing. I am Scott McClellan for your FX Missions from the Forefront podcast. If you'd like to contact me or us, please do so at FXMissions.com. Until next time, have a good one.
You've been listening to From the Forefront, hosted by FX Missions' Scott McClelland. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like more information on today's guest, please go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/FXMissions. Please rate our show on iTunes or your favorite podcast provider. If you know someone who should be a guest on our podcast, we're currently reviewing candidates for upcoming episodes. Please submit their name, affiliation, and an essay of why their story needs to be told to info@fxmissions.com. And of course, you can always follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website at FXmissions.com. From Scott McClelland and the whole team here at FX Missions, thanks for listening. Till next time, have a great day.